Lojo sampo pa gyo tra she pa tu che tempe trinle yarngoda pe ge dro zambe zebra che pande shabla solvade Omo a guru vajradara suma timoni shasane kar Uta vardanya shri bar varsa manya sarva siddhi hum Om guru vajradar sumati muni shasane kar Uta vardanya shri bar varsa manya sarva siddhi hum Om guru vajradar sumati muni shasar Uta vardanya shri bhadra varsa manya sarva siddhi hum Om guru vajradar sumati muni shasane kar Uta vardanya shri bhadra varsa manya sarva siddhi hum Pakyuke kudan dagi lo, pakyuke sondan dagi nga, pakyuke tukdan dagi ye, ten yerme chiktu jingi lo. Makyuke kudan dagi lo, makyuke sondan dagi nga, makyuke tukdan dagi ye, ten yerme chiktu jingi lo. Omo namo bhagavate sarva trilokya prati vishishtaya buddhayate nama tayata om brum 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 shodaya shodaya vishodaya vishodaya asama samanta Avabas parana ghati kagana swabhava vishuddhe abhishinjantu mam sarva tathagata sugata varavachana amrita abhishekera mahamudra mantra pade ahara ahara mama ayo sandara nishodaya shodaya Vishodaya Vishodaya Kagana Swabhava Vishuddhe Ushnisha Vijaya Parishuddhe Sahasra Rasmi Sanchodite Sarva Tathagata Avalokini Shat Paramita Paripurani Sarva Tathagata Mate Dasha Bhumi Pratishtit Sarva Tathagata Hridaya Adhishtana adhishtite mudre mudre mahamud vajrakaya samantana parishuddhe sarva karma avarana vishuddhe pratinivartaya mama ayur vishuddhe sarva tathagata samaya adhishtana adhishtit om muni muni mahamuni vi Mahavi Mati Mati Mahamati Mamati Sumati Tatata Buddha Koti Parishuddhe Visputa Buddhishuddhe He He Jaya Jaya Vijaya Smara Smara Spara Spara Sparaya Sparaya Sarva Buddha Adhishtana Adhishtite Shuddhe Shuddhe Buddhe Buddha Vajre Vajre Maha Vajre Su Vajre Vajragar Jaya Garbe Vijaya Garbe Vajra Jwala Garbe Vajro Bhave Vajra Sambhave Vajre Vajrini Vajram Bhavantu Mama Shariram Sarva Sattvam Cha Kaya Parishuddhir Bhavantu Me Sada Sarva Gati Parishuddhischa Sarva Tata Gatascha Mam Samasvasa Yantu Buddhaya Buddhaya Siddhaya Siddhaya Buddhaya Bodhaya Vibodhaya Vibodhaya Mochaya Mochaya Vimochaya Vimochaya Shodhaya Shodhaya Vishodhaya Vishodhaya Samantena Mochaya Mochaya Samanta Rasmi Parishuddhe Sarvatata Gata Hridaya Adhishtana Adhishtite Mudre Mudre Maha Mudra Mantra Pade Svoha. Omo Namo Bhagavate Sarvatilokya Prativishishtaya Buddhayate Nama Tayata Om Brum 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 Shodaya Shodaya Vishodaya Vishodaya Asama Samanta Avabas Paranagati Kagana Swabhava Vishuddhe Abhishinchantu Mam Sarvatata Gata Sugata Varavachana Amrita Abhishekera Mahamudra Mantra Pade Ahara Ahara Mama Ayu Sandarani Shodaya Shodaya Vishodaya Vishodaya Kagana Swabhava Vishuddhe Ushnisha Vijaya Parishuddhe Sahasra Rasmi Sanchodit Sarvatata Gata Avalokini Shat Paramita Paripurani Sarvatata Gata Mate Dasha Bhumi Pratishtite Sarvatata Gata Hridaya Adhishtana Adhishtite Mudre Mudre Maha Mudre Vajrakaya Samanta Parishuddhe Sarva Karma Avarana Vishuddhe Prati Nivartaya Mama Ayur Vishuddhe Sarva Tata Gata Samaya Adhishtana Adhishtite Om Muni Muni Maha Vi Muni Maha Vi Muni Mati Mati Maha Mamati Sumati Tatata Bhuta Koti Parish Bodhishuddhe He He Jaya Jaya Vi Smara Smara Spara Spara Sparaya Sparaya Sarva Buddha Adhishtana Adhishtite Shuddhe Shuddhe Buddhe Vajre Vajre Maha Vajre Su Vajre Vajra Garbe Jaya Gar Vijaya Garbe Vajra Jwala Garbe Vajro Bhave Vajra Sambhave Vajre Vajrini Vajram Bhavantu Mama Shariram Sarva Sattvanam Chakaya Parishuddhir Bhavantu Me Sada Sarva Gati Parishuddhischa Sarva Tata Gatascha Mam Samavasayantu Buddhaya Buddhaya Siddhaya Siddhaya Bodhaya Bodhaya Vibodhaya Vibodhaya Mochaya Mochaya Vimochaya Vimochaya Shodhaya Shodhaya Vishodhaya Vishodhaya Samantena Mochaya Mochaya Samanta Rasmi Parishuddhe Sarva Tata Gata Hridaya Adhishtana Adhishtite Mudre Mudre Maha Mudra Mantra Pade Svoha. Omoya Namo Bhagavate Sarvatilokya Prativishishtaya Buddhayate Nama Tayata Om Brum 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 Shodaya Shodaya Vishodaya Vishodaya Asama Samanta Avabas Paranagati Kagana Swabhava Vishuddhe Abhishinchantu Mam Sarvatata Gata Sugata Varavachana Amrita Abhishekera Mahamudra Mantra Pade Ahara Ahara Mama Ayo Sandarani Shodaya Shodaya Vishodaya Vishodaya Kagana Swabhava Vishuddhe Ushnisha Vijaya Parishuddhe Sahasra Rasmi Sanchod Sarvatata Gata Avalokini Shat Paramita Paripurani Sarvatata Gata Mate Dasha Bhumi Pratishtite Sarvatata Gata Hridaya Adhishtana Adhishtite Mudre Mudre Maha Vajrakaya Samantana Parishuddhe Sarva Karma Avarana Vishuddhe Prati Nivartaya Mama Ayur Vishuddhe Sarva Tathagata Samaya Adrishtana Adrisht Om Muni Muni Maha Muni Ve Muni Ve Muni Maha Ve Mati Mati Maha Mati Mamati Sumati Tatata Buddha Koti Parishuddhe Visputa Buddhishuddhe He He Jaya Jaya Ve Jaya Ve Jaya Smara Smara Spara Spara Sparayas Sarva Buddha Adrishtana Adrishti Shuddhe Shuddhe Buddhe Buddhe Vajre Vajre Ma Vajre Su Vajra Garbe Jaya Garbe Vi Jaya Garbe Vajra Jwala Garbe Vajro Bhave Vajra Sambhave Vajre Vajrini Vajram Bhavantu Mama Shariram Sarva Satanam Cha Kaya Parishuddhir Bhavantu Me Sada Sarva Gati Parishuddhischa Sarva Tata Gatascha Mam Samasvasayantu Buddhaya Buddhaya Siddhaya Siddhaya Bodhaya Bodhaya Vibodaya Vibodaya Mochaya Mochaya Vimochaya Vimochaya Shodaya Shodaya Vishodaya Vishodaya Samantena Mochaya Mochaya Samanta Rasmi Parishuddhi Sarva Tathagata Hridaya Adrishtana Adrishtite Mudre Mudre Mahamud Mahamudra Mantra Pade Soham Omo Brum Soha Omo Amrita Ayurdate Soha Omo Brum Soha Omo Amrita Ayurdate Soha Omo Brum Soha Omo Amrita Ayurdate Soha Omo Ahum Tramre Am Amam Sarva Sattvam Cha Raksha Raksha Kuru Soha Om Ahum Tramre Am Amam Sarva Sattvam Cha Raksha Raksha Kuru Soha Om Ahum Tramre Am Sarva Sattvam Cha Raksha Raksha Kuru Soha Om A Guru Buddha Ushnisha Vijaya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om A Guru Buddha Ushnisha Vijaya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om A Guru Buddha Ushnisha Vijaya Sarva Siddhi Hum Omo Amite Amito Bhawe Amita Vikrante Amita Gatri Amita Kamini Amita Ayurdate Kagana Kirtikare Sarva Kleshakshayam Kareye Svoha Omo Amite Amito Bhawe Amita Vikrante Amita Gatri Amita Kamini Amita Ayurdate Kagana Kirtikare Sarva Kleshakshayam Kareye Svoha Omo Amite Amito Bhawe Amita Vikrante Amita Gatri Amita Gamini Amita Ayurdate Kagana Kirtikare Sarva Kleshakshayam Kariye Svoha Jetsun Lame Kutse Rabdenchi Namkar Chinle Cholchurgi Tembe Drume Sasumgi Drove Muse Tatu Ne Gyurchi Sangye Chedan Soge Chonam La Chancho Pardo Dani Kyapsuchi Dagi Chinso Gibe Sonamgi Trola Pinchra Sangye Druparesho Sangye Chedan Soge Chonam La Chancho Bhardo Dani Kyapsuchi Dagi Jinso Gibe Sonamgi Drola Pinchra Sangye Druparesho Sangye Chedan Sogi Chonamla Chancho Bhardo Dani Kyapsuchi Dagi Chushe Gibe Sonamgi Drola Pinchira Sangye Druparasho. In the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, I take refuge until enlightenment. Through the practice of generosity and the other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. So, sometimes I think that nowadays we have somehow a tendency to avoid difficult things. I'm talking about not only difficult situations, I'm also talking about knowledge. No, I'm generally speaking, okay? We have a tendency, we want things easy to understand, everything already chewed for us, easy to digest, easy to get everything. And then we don't want to feel stupid in front of some information. We want to get everything easy and accessible. And we don't have that much approach of dealing with something more difficult. We try to avoid it somehow. No? Instead, I think that it's really beautiful when we have something difficult. It's really good. Because when we have something that is difficult to understand, when we have a text that you read the text and you cannot get the meaning. But there is meaning in the text. I'm not talking about a text that has no meaning. I'm talking about the text that has deep meaning, but I cannot understand it. Wow. This means that I can open my mind more. So I really need to put effort. And slowly, I can actually get and understand. And when I need to put effort to understand something, I'm opening my mind. I'm opening my horizon. And that's so important to do. So, I really like when there is something difficult to understand. And we need to put effort, we need to dedicate time, we need to put energy. And then as we put energy, slowly it gets more and more clear. And suddenly, wow, we understood it. And our mind gets more space. We're able to perceive things more clear. Okay? So, otherwise, what happens is that we stay very often in a very superficial level of things. And when something is difficult, we try to avoid it. You know? But in Buddhism, we have many difficult things, especially, when we talk about the 9th chapter of the Bodhisattva Charyavatara, it's a difficult chapter. You know? Even at the time of Shantideva, when this teaching was taught. And the 9th chapter is not only difficult for us Westerners in this context. It's difficult for the monks, it's difficult. Even when I was studying it, for many of us it was very difficult. When I read it, it's not obvious at all. Something you need to stop and you need to think and you need to look in the commentary. It's not an obvious chapter at all. So, even, when Shantideva originally taught it, as many of you already know, Shantideva, he was a monk at Nalanda monastery around 1,500 years ago. And he was not a very well-known monk in the monastery. He was known for the one that would do 3 actions. That was eating, going to the toilet, and sleeping. This is a way of the old Indian way of saying when someone is very lazy and is not doing anything. Oh, you are a man only of 3 actions. No? So, the point is that that's how he was called. And basically, why? Because he was not showing to anyone his knowledge and his realizations. And this is also another important thing for us to learn. Since India and in Tibet, the tradition has always been your realizations you keep for yourself. You use them to help others, but you don't need to show off to anyone. Oh, I understood this, I have that vision, I have this sensibility. I can do this, I can do that, I have this knowledge. We don't need. What we know, we use to help others, but we don't need to show off to anyone. For example, my teacher in Tibet, Kajin Losam Phuntsho Rinpoche, the abbot of Tashilumpu, he's nowadays one of the most respected lamas in the whole of Tibet, in Tibet itself. And he's one of the persons that I know that has the greatest knowledge about Buddhism, really. and a really serious practitioner, really very serious practitioner. And sometimes I make him questions when I have private teachings. Then I put him a question, and then he said, oh yes, Lama Tsongkhapa said this, Panchen Losang Gyaltsen said that Lama said this, that other master said that. And then I said, but Genla, what do you think about it? What's your position? Then he says, what matters my position? Who am I to say what I think? What I think is for myself. Then I go there, oh yes, please tell me. And then he said, okay, sometimes he tells me, other sometimes not. And then when I make a question about something that has no specific reference from some other texts, then he may say, okay, I think like this, but don't take it for granted that it's right. Huh? This is just what I think. And how it happens nowadays in the West, people read 3 books and are writing the 4th. I am right away, okay, I read something here, I read something there, I have some superficial knowledge about things, and there I am writing about, and I am showing off that I know this, I know that, and so on, no? Like I say, bonjour, comment ça va? And I think I speak French. I show off as I speak French, but actually I don't, I have no idea about French. I just learned 2 words, and then I'm showing off that I speak French, That's very much what we do nowadays in this modern society. So this has been condemned very strongly since India. So Shantideva, even though he was a great master, great realized practitioner, he was not showing anything about it. That's why people were calling him the man of 3 actions. No? So one day, he was requested to, making a long story short, okay? He was requested to make a commentary on a text because they wanted to kick him out of the monastery, basically. So he was requested to comment on a text in order to, after a certain number of years in the monastery, you were obliged to give a teaching, to give a commentary on a text. So they request him to do it, and they were thinking he's not going to be able to do it, so he needs to go out of the monastery. So when he was there, and then he asked them, okay, do you want a commentary on a text that already exists, or you want me to comment on something of my own, authorship? And then, when he asked that, they said, okay, let's see, what have you written, okay? They said, nothing good will come out of that. That's not possible, no? So, when they taught this, he started reciting the Bodhisattva Charyavatara, entering into the path, entering into the lifestyle of the Bodhisattva, guide to the lifestyle of the Bodhisattva. One of the most beautiful and profound and complete texts that have ever been written in Buddhist literature. And he started reciting it, and everybody was simply amazed. But when he got to the 9th chapter, what the history says is that when he got to the 9th chapter, he started to fly, to levitate. And as he was levitating, only those that had the same realizations could levitate together to listen to him. Okay? Now, me with my very pragmatic mind, how do I see that? How do I interpret it? The 9th chapter is so deep and so difficult that only those that had already realizations and understanding could follow him. All the rest were just like, okay, what he's talking about, just sounds coming out. They really couldn't get the meaning. Okay? So, since the time of Shantideva, the 9th chapter is difficult. It's not something new because we are nowadays in the West and we have no preparation or whatsoever. No. It's simply something that has always been difficult. Why? Because the 9th chapter is basically a condensed version of the whole philosophy of the Madhyamika with the debate and discussion between the other philosophical schools. So in other words, it's like you can only really understand the 9th chapter if you have studied well books and books and books on correct view of reality. So normally, who can actually really understand well? When you have done a very good study on the four schools, especially the Madhyamika in discussion with the Madhyamika Prasangika, Svautantrika, and the Chittamatra, and so on. When you have a good understanding about the whole philosophy behind, then it's extremely beautiful, because it's like remembering you of all the philosophies, like, how to say, reminding us of everything that we have seen before. No? But if we have not studied all of that, then we get a little bit lost. We don't know what is really happening, So, even I was one time reading when Alexander Berzing, which is a very good translator and teacher of Buddhism, when he was actually teaching, I think in Germany, he was teaching the Bodhisattva Charyavatara, and he was making a few hours every week. And from the first to the 8th chapter, to the end of the 8th chapter, it took him something like a year or something like that. And to finish only the 9th chapter took 3 years. Because if we need to go into detail of every verse, like for example, up to now, I have explained the Bodhisattva Charyavatara, going word by word, the meaning of every verse, we have gone through it. If we need to do the same thing on the 9th chapter, it takes ages. Basically, another thing, it's not possible to explain verse number 100 if you have not understood clearly all the other verses that came before, because there is a whole preparation coming before. So basically, in order for us to study, to understand in a detailed way the 9th chapter, we need really to study deeply the whole part of the philosophy and the discussion between the different philosophical schools and so on. My intention during these days is not to go into every word and every detail on the 9th chapter. For one reason, I don't think I would be the right person to do that, based on my own knowledge. Another thing is I don't think we are in the right context and time for that. So basically, my idea is that we'll go through the 9th chapter using it as a guideline to help us to have a better understanding on the correct view of reality, in order that we can apply that in our daily life. Okay? This is just a little bit an introduction to this. Otherwise, we can get a little bit lost. Don't worry if you feel stupid when you read some verse and you don't understand it. That's normal. Okay? Because it's just like if we take a verse that is the quintessence of physics or whatever, and you have never studied the physics behind it. Can you understand it? No. It's the same thing. Okay? So we try to use it as a guideline to have a better understanding on the correct view of reality, in order for us to apply it in our daily life. Okay? So, Yini Wangnam Lamine Soso Lami Parnamin Nanga Semin Temin Shir Temin Shin Shendu Yang Nyemayin Kangshi Lumin Shendu Min Dremin Lokswan Garmepa Teni Chungsi Ming Teichir Semchen Rangshin Nyangede Sheja Lengar Sheyona Teni Chila Migneke Sheda Sheja Lenchina Teni Chigla Mineke Wente Sheje Chi Yona Tetse Sheba Kangleke Tetarchunam Tamchegi Kewa Tokpar Gyur Mayin. So at this point of the text, there are two main things that I want to share. The first one is that we are here actually reflecting upon the emptiness of inherent existence of the mind. Okay? The lack of inherent existence of the mind. And this is already a little bit difficult for us because we are not even used to observe the mind itself. Let it be the lack of inherent existence of the mind. No? But trying to do it, first of all, what Shantideva is showing us here is that our mind is not something solid. When we think about the mind, very often we try to find the mind in something solid, something that we can actually point our finger and say, there it is. But as much as we try to point the finger to the mind, we cannot find it. Why? Because the mind is complex. The mind is composed by many, many, many parts together. It's like if I look at the book and I try to point a finger at every page saying, oh, is this the book? Where is the book? And finally I cannot find it. Okay? So, the mind is composed first of all of a flow of thoughts. One coming after the other. It's not something that is solid in this way. So it's many thoughts, one coming after the other. Okay? We have the sixth sense consciousness. So at the same time, I can have a mind that perceives sound, and a mind that perceives taste, and a mind that perceives touch, and so on. We have the sixth sense, and a mind that has a memory about something or an idea about something else. Okay? So at the same time, we can have what we call the sixth consciousness at the same time. So 6 aspects of the mind at the same time. Each one of this is composed by what we call mental factors. Mental factors are aspects of the mind. So basically, the mental factors are, we have 51, but the most important ones that are always present is there is always sensation, there is always discrimination, there is always intention, there is always direction, the direction of the mind, and there is always contact. Okay? So, who have studied the 51 mental factors, logic and so on, this may be a little bit easier, but anyhow, the point is that at every moment our mind have many aspects. So if we try to find the mind in one of them, it would not be enough. It's one thing. One of these aspects, for example, is contact. Contact is the union of object of perception, which can be sound, okay, sense power, our ear, and the ear sense consciousness. So we have these 3 together, which makes contact, from which we have sensation and discrimination and so on. So what is happening basically is that in the moment that we generate a state of mind, anyone, even just listening to a sound, there are many things coming together. Okay? So first point is that our mind is not something solid like a brick. Even a brick is not that solid. It's made of many small parts, actually. No? And our mind is made of many, 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 many aspects. Many parts put together. So if we try to point the finger saying the mind is here, the mind is there, we cannot find it. Okay? So the mind is interdependent. The mind is related to the body. The mind is not inside the body, it's not outside the body. If we try to look it only in one place. Okay? The mind, it's together with it. And at the same time, it exists within the interdependence of all of this, which means, for example, when we listen to a sound, no? Let's take, for instance, the sound of the bell. Okay? This is the second point. We listen to the sound, and our own perception is that we are here, the sound is there. Right? And I am listening to the sound. Why? Because I am sitting in my place, someone is hitting the singing bowl with a stick, it's creating vibration in the air, and I am listening to it. Right? So, our own perception is basically that the mind that perceives the sound and the sound that we perceive exist as 2 separate things. One has nothing to do with the other, really, somehow. That's how we experience it directly. But the second point that Shantideva is bringing here, in verse 104 and 105, basically, is actually showing us later that the object of perception and the observer are not 2 separate entities. It's not completely like, they don't exist in a dualistic way how we normally perceive. We have normally this experience and the sensation that the observer and the object perceive are completely separate. So we have a dualistic experience. The truth is that we are actually non-dual. Let's try to understand a little bit. So when we listen to the sound, Okay? The sound that everyone is listening here, is it the same sound? Let's take, for instance, contact, which we just talked before. Okay, we have 3 points. The object of perception, the sense power, and the sense consciousness. The object of perception, the sound that is emanating from the singing bowl. Is it the same that we are all listening? Conventionally, we would say yes. If we analyze, the answer is no. Why? Because the sound that we are listening is not the sound that is coming out from here, it's the sound that is arriving at our ear. Okay? We are sitting at different positions. The sound is reflecting in different ways. It has different strength. Okay? So even the physical sound that arrives at our ear, the object of perception, is not the same. Even if we look at it, it's not the same. We are at different distance, we look from different perspectives. So even the object itself is not the same. Okay? So the object that we perceive, each one of us, is not exactly the same. It's very similar, but it's not the same. The sense power. Our ears, is this the same? Do we all listen in the same way? No. Our ear sense consciousness, is it the same? No. The sound may sound different for each one of us. Okay? So the experience when we listen to this sound, it's a very different experience for every one of us. Even though it's similar, it's never going to be the same. Okay? So our experience is different. The object that we experience is different. Even though we go all around the same bell and we listen together, still, the object that each one of us experiences is different because, as we have seen yesterday, nothing exists independently of the name that is given to it, which means the imputation of the name. In other words, the book is nothing more, nothing less than characteristics and functions, the name book, assigned, imputed on a union of parts put together. Okay? So the attribution that we give is already different. It comes with different emotions, different expectations, different memories, and so on. So when we listen to the sound, the emotion that we will have is different. The meaning that it will have for us is different because we are different. So the object is different. Okay? The experience that we experience, each one of us, is the same experience? Not at all. Okay. Now, the mind that perceives the sound of the bell and the sound of the bell, do they exist one independently of the other? The mind that perceives the sound of the bell, can it exist without the sound of the bell existing? No. The sound of the bell that I perceive, can it exist without the mind that perceives the sound of the bell existing? No. Who comes first? Is there first the sound and then the mind? Or there is first the mind and then the sound? If we analyze it really, it's something quite complex. Philosophically, there are many different views. There are long debates about this, okay? One of the points is that if first comes the sound and then comes the mind, when the mind that perceives the sound appears, it's not perceiving anymore the sound because the sound is not there anymore, because it's already gone. Okay? If what I am seeing is not the actual object, because the object comes first, if first comes the object of perception and then comes the mind that perceives, what happens? What I am perceiving is not anymore the object because the object has already changed, it's already gone. Okay? So, and what happens if first comes the mind and after comes the object? How can there be a mind that perceives the sound without the sound existing? Okay? So what happens is that the two are depending one on the other. It's like here and there. One does not exist without the other. the mind that perceives the bell, the sound of the bell, and the sound of the bell, one does not exist without the other. Even the name that is given for phenomenon is sheja in Tibetan. Sheja means object of perception. Something exists in the moment that it's perceived. Okay? But the mind that perceives the object cannot exist without its own object of perception. So basically, the sound and the mind that perceives the sound are of the same nature. One cannot exist without the other. We can have the memory of the sound later. We can play the sound. Someone can play the sound, the sound of the bell here, and I am not here, but it's not the same sound. That I listen and then you listen. So the sound that I listen and my mind that perceives the sound do not exist one without the other. Please, Rohir. Yes. Sure. Oh, very simple. The question is, when we see the stars at the night, actually the light that arrives to us, many of the stars have already gone. The same way, when we see the moon, the light that arrives to us is 8 minutes already gone, okay? No, this is the sun. I think the sun is 8 minutes far away. So when we see the sun, the position that we see the sun and everything is already 8 minutes late, okay? Actually, we are not seeing the stars. We have never seen a star. All we see is the light that arrives to our eyes. Nothing more than that. That we call stars. Okay? All that we see is the light that comes to our eyes. This is what we are seeing. It's the same way. It's similar to the other example. When we look at ourselves in the mirror, what are we seeing? Conventionally, we see our face. If we analyze, what are we seeing? The reflection of light from the mirror to our face, to our eyes. So we are seeing the reflection of our face. We are not seeing our face. In the same way, when we look at the stars, we are not seeing the stars. We are seeing the light of the stars that is coming and arriving to our eyes. Okay? So, from this point of view, there is actually no fault in this sense, because the perception of the light and the mind that perceives the light, it comes together at the same time also. No? Quindi, so, basically, here we have 2 points that Shantideva is bringing to us. That is, 1, our mind is complex. It's made of many, many, many parts. So if we try to point a finger to find here or there, we cannot point the mind to something. Okay? We need to understand our mind from this very complex interdependence of thoughts, emotions, perceptions, and many things that comes together with it. And the other aspect is that we cannot find our mind looking for it completely separated from the objects of perception. Okay? We are always connected to everything that we perceive. Okay? And the mind cannot exist without having an object of perception. That's important. Yeah. When I mean something is of the same nature, means one cannot exist without the other. Okay? They are 2 separate objects, but one cannot exist without the other. The sound that I listen, the sound that I listen, okay, and my mind that perceives that sound, one cannot exist without the other. Okay, they are 2 different things, but one cannot exist without the other. That's why they are of the same nature. When we say that 2 things are of the same nature, there are 2 things that are of the same nature, which means there are 2 things, but one cannot exist without the other. And if there is one, there is the other. Okay? So, okay. We have many, our mind has many levels. Okay? But the point is not, if we think about the mind in a continuum way, okay, the mind that in a way we have emotions, we have thoughts, we have many things that are not manifested, and at a certain point when entering contact with an object, they manifest, okay? But we are actually going a little bit in more, how to say, it's like opening a little bit more details and checking. If we look, every perception is connected to an object of perception. It can be of our six senses. And that specific perception does not exist without its object of perception existing. That's the point. Okay? Why there are two? Okay. Why there are two? Very simple. Because the sound, does the sound exist? But does it exist? Yes. It exists because you can perceive it. Does the mind that perceives it exist? If they would be one, there would be no perception. If they would be one, there would be even now the possibility to look at one or the other. Okay? They are of the same nature because one cannot exist without the other. Okay? But they are interdependent in a way. But they are not exactly the same thing. Okay? Like if they would be the same thing, me and you will be the same, everything will be the same, even we would not be able to look at things, we will not be able to interact with anything, everything will be just, actually nothing would exist. So I will just read once again these verses and then we move for one more verse. Verse 102. A mind is not situated in cognitive sensors, in sights and so on, nor in the space in between. A mind isn't inside, nor is it outside, nor it can be found, in fact, anywhere else. Something that isn't the body nor something else, neither commingled nor separated in any way, isn't anything truly existent at all. The mind doesn't exist inherently in anywhere. It's in the interdependence of all together. Because of that, limited beings are by nature released in paranirvana. In the cognition of, if the cognition is a question that is put by other schools, if the cognition of something were prior to what it cognized, then what is it to be aimed at for its rising to occur? Actually, there is the question that comes before, that is in between, is not specifically in the verse, that in other schools they ask, oh, but the sense consciousness are truly existent. You can say that the mind consciousness is not truly existent, but the sense consciousness, yes, is truly existent. Then here comes the answer, which brings the question. If the sense consciousness would be truly existent, then it should truly exist before, together, or after the object of perception. No? So if the cognition of something were prior to what it cognized, then what is it to be aimed at for its arising to occur? If the mind that perceives the sound should arise before the sound, what is it being aimed at when it arises? Because the sound is not existing yet. So it's not working. If a cognition were simultaneous with what it cognized, still, what is it to be aimed at for its arising to occur? Yes, yet, if it occurred, which means if it's coming together, it's arising at the same time, and it exists totally autonomously, then what is being aimed at, because the two are arriving at the same time, it doesn't have the time to look at something, doesn't have time to aim at it. Okay? Yet, if it occurred after what it cognized, then from what did the cognition of it arise? Similarly, it can be determined that there is a truly existent arising. Similar, it can't be determined that there is a truly existent arising of any phenomenon. Which means, making a short, this is a very complex part that normally we study when, we study this a lot when studying the mind and the senses and so on. But the point here is that the observer and the object of perception do not exist separated one of the other. They exist in an interdependent way. The mind that perceives the sound and the sound exist one independence of the other. So there is not such a thing as an inherently existing mind and an inherently existing sound. Okay? As I said, these are points that we could go on and on studying, and there are many texts which really explain these things in much more details, okay? And are quite complex still. Okay, now let's move for another verse. Very briefly, the next verses. We start by the end of verse 105, which is talking about the lack of inherent existence of all phenomena, which says, Tedar chönam tamcheki, kewa tokpar gyurmayin, kalte dedar kunzo me, tela deni kala yo, teyang kunzo shengina, semche nyange kala da. Le, dini shen sem namdokte, dini rangi kunzo mi, chite tena te yote, mina kunzo mebani, tokdan takpar chawada, nibo penzum tembayin. Chitar chakpa latene, number cheba tamche je. Similarly, it can be determined that there is a truly existent arising of any phenomena. So, similar to the mind, the sensation, the body, and so on, that have been seen before, all phenomena lack inherent existence. Nothing exists out of its own characteristics. So, here there is some questions that other philosophical schools put these questions, and then the Madhyamika school is answering. That says, suppose you objected, but if it were like that, then surface true, which means conventionally existing things, wouldn't exist at all. And also, how, in this case, could there be the two truth? Moreover, if they were being projected by others as veiling surfaces truth, as untrue, as veiling surface truth, which means like the translation for as false conventional truth, then how could there be someone with a limited mind unveiled and released with nirvana? Well, this would be deceptive conception. This would be the deceptive conception of the limited minds of others. But that isn't surface truth from our own point of view. What's ascertained afterwards that still exists, and it's not the surface truth. And if not, then surface truth turns out to be something that doesn't exist. And also, what's conceptually examining and what's conceptually examining. Okay, this is the next part. So here, 2 points are put, okay? Here, surface truth is basically the translation that was given to conventional truth also, which is the way how things appear to us. Okay? So if things actually do not exist, if phenomena don't exist truly, and here there is a question, why do we use the word phenomena don't exist truly instead of saying phenomena don't exist inherently? It would be more clear, no? To say phenomena don't exist inherently. But why it's used the word phenomena don't have a true existence? Phenomena do not truly exist. My own understanding of this is because when we perceive things, how do phenomena appear to exist for us? As truly existent out of their own characteristics, as existing in an independent way. Like, how do phenomena appear to exist for us? As being objective, as having an objective existence or a subjective existence? Objective existence. That's how things appear to us, but they do not truly exist in that way. So when we say that phenomena do not truly exist, means phenomena do not truly exist in the way how we see them. This doesn't mean that they don't exist. It simply means that they do not exist in the way how they appear to us. So conventionally, in the surface, everything is okay. Without analyzing, things exist as they appear to exist. If we start to analyze, then they do not exist in that way. Okay? It's similar if we look at the image in a screen. Without analyzing, there is the image there of a person. If we analyze, there are simply many small dots of light. Okay? So, what happens is that if without analyzing, yes, this is there, this is here, there's there, things are as they appear to us without, and conventionally it's there. But if we analyze, we will see that that convention actually is fake. Okay, things do not exist as they appear. That's why we say things do not truly exist, in the sense that things do not exist in the way how they truly appear to us to exist. Okay? And here there are two main points, which are one, that in the moment that we say that phenomena do not truly exist, we can have the doubt in which we say, oh, so then nothing exists at all. No. It's possible to have this doubt, huh? Oh, phenomena do not truly exist. The way how you perceive reality is a total illusion. So I can think, oh, so nothing exists. No, things do exist. Reality does exist. It doesn't exist in the way how it appears to us, but it actually does exist. Second point that is coming out from here is that we say, okay, but if phenomena exist only based on the imputation of the name, then anything can exist. It's just a matter of believing in it. No. In order for something to exist, it must depend on the imputation of the name and the union of the parts that must be able to fulfill the functions that we are assigning to it. Otherwise, it cannot exist in that way. Okay? So, even if I take, for example, a Buddha, and I think, oh, a Buddha is not a Buddha, does that make of him not a Buddha? No. Why? It's a wrong perception. Why? Because a Buddha cannot fulfill the parts together of a Buddha, cannot fulfill the functions and the characteristics of a suffering miserly, a suffering and selfish being. Okay? So basically, this is a very important point. It's not because I believe that something exists in a way that necessarily it must be like that. There are wrong perceptions. Okay? And actually here it goes into another aspect which is a little bit more complex. As we say, Kalte tedar kunzup me, tela deni kalaye, te yang kunzup shengina, semche nyange kalada. Teni, shensem namdokte, teni rangi kunzup mi, chite, ngena te yote, mina kunzup mebani, tokdan takpar chawata, nibo penzum temba yin. Chitara chakpa la tene, number cheba tamche job. Well, this would be the deceptive conception of limited minds of others. What would be the deceptive conception? That basically the two truths don't exist, that nothing, that conventional reality doesn't exist. Okay? But that isn't the conventional truth from our own point of view, from the Madhyamika point of view. What is ascertained afterwards, that still exists, and if not, the surface truth turns out to be something that doesn't exist. So, which means, basically, what is being said here is like that. If conventional truth doesn't exist, then a Buddha cannot perceive it. Okay? A Buddha perceives everything that exists. If conventional truth is a total illusion, someone that is out of the illusion would not see it. Okay? So, a Buddha would not perceive conventional reality. He would just stay in a total abstract state and would not be able to perceive anything like the sound, the touch, or anything else. But that's not the conventional truth that we say. That in Madhyamika school we say, a Buddha can perceive things, which means they do exist. But Buddha can perceive things as being of inherent existence. As being of interdependent existence. Not inherently. So, conventional reality does exist. It is illusory from the point of view that it appears to be, to us, as being absolute. A Buddha perceives conventional reality as being conventional. Okay? We perceive conventional reality as being absolute. That's our problem. Okay? So, if conventional reality would not exist, then even a Buddha would not perceive it. But a Buddha does perceive it because it exists conventionally. Okay? It exists in an interdependent way. Okay? So this is the points that we get here from these verses. Just the conclusion here is that conventional reality does exist. It's very important for us to stabilize this. Ultimate reality and conventional reality, both of them exist and they are of the same nature. One does not exist without the other. Without going into details now. The cup. The conventional reality of the cup is the interdependence of the cup. Is the cup existing as a cup based on the imputation of the name and the union of its parts. Okay? The ultimate truth of the cup is its lack of inherent existence. Why the cup exists as a cup? Because it lacks inherent existence. Why the lack of inherent existence of the cup exists? Because the cup exists. Okay, one cannot exist without the other. That's why they are of the same nature. But we don't go into details of that right now. The important thing is that conventional truth does exist here. Because someone may ask me, but why are these things being repeated so many times? Because for centuries and centuries and centuries, many practitioners and many masters and many philosophical schools have taught the opposite. Have understood, if phenomena don't exist as they appear, which means they don't exist. Things do not truly exist. Nothing exists. Everything is empty. And this is a view that has been established very strongly by many masters and many practitioners in the centuries ago. So, Lama Tsongkhapa made very clear again and again, remember, it's not like this. Even we can see Shantideva also, no? But still, there have been many interpretations done in a different way. There was even in Tibet, one time there was one master, if I remember well his name, because I have very bad memory for names, but it was Lobang Kamala Shila. And there was another master which was from the Hashang, was his name, Hashang Gitawa. They had two different views. One was saying that, I think it's before Atisha came to Tibet, so long time ago. One of them was saying, nothing exists. Everything is of the nature of emptiness. There is nothing. All you need is to go enter your mind into nothingness. There is no need to accumulate merit. There is no need to develop compassion. All you need to do is to enter into nothingness and realize the nothingness of everything. Something like that, okay? And the other one was saying, no, phenomena do exist. You need to accumulate merit, you need to develop generosity, need to help others, need to develop compassion. You need to also that phenomena do not exist as they appear, but they do exist, and you need to develop all this part of method. So the king at the time, he said, look, I don't know who is right and who is wrong. I have no knowledge for that. But one thing I know, they are very different points of view. So he said, he requested a public debate. So he requested a public debate. So the kings at the time were very powerful. No? So he made a public debate. He called the main master of one tradition, which was Lobang Kamala Shila, the main master of the other tradition. The other tradition is Hashang Gitawa. I don't know the name of the other master. He called both of them, and two groups were together, and they started a public debate, which lasted for a week or something like that, I think. And they were there making this public debate. And finally, the one that was saying that nothing exists lost the debate. As a consequence, he was exiled from Tibet and sent away and was not allowed to teach anymore there, all this tradition. And then he went to China, and from China went around. Okay? So, this point, if phenomena do exist or do not exist, it's a crucial point that very often have been understood in different ways. Because what's the consequence if we think, no, nothing exists? Then we go into nihilism and we say, there is no merit, there is no this, all you need to understand is that all you need to do is enter into nothingness. It's not like that. You need to develop compassion, you need to develop love, you need to generate generosity, and so on. And Lama Tsongkhapa stated very clearly, when he says, how do you know if your own process of reflection and learning of emptiness is going in the right or wrong direction? If the more you reflect upon emptiness, upon the lack of inherent existence, the more you have faith and trust in the law of cause and effect, that means you are going in the right direction. If by reflecting upon emptiness and interdependence and so on, you get far away from the law of cause and effect and saying, it doesn't matter what I do, I don't do because everything is empty, then you are going in the wrong direction. When by reflecting upon emptiness, we should get more and more near to reality, to interdependence. Every action is so powerful. Why? Because everything is interdependent. Every thought is so powerful. Why? Because everything is interdependent. That's where we should go to. Okay? So it's a very important point for us to remember and always to be sure that we are going in the right direction. Not to go into the direction of saying nothing exists. So let's just relax into nothingness. That's not the right way. Okay? So we stop here for today. Jetson la me kutse raptenchi namkar tinle cholchur gepada losan tempe dreme sasumgi drove munsel tatu ne gyurchi nimo dele tsendele nime kuyan delekshi nintsen taktu delekpe Koncho sumge jingi lob, koncho sumge ngodru tso, koncho sumge trashisho. At dawn or dusk, at night or midday, may the three jewels grant us their blessings. May they help us to achieve all realizations and sprinkle the path of our lives with various signs of auspiciousness. We just do one short recitation of the mantra, as we have the commitment to do in the beginning and end of every session. Omo namo bhagavate sarva trilokya prati vishishtaya buddhayate nama tayata om brom 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 shodaya shodaya vishodaya vishodaya asama samanta Ababas parana gati kagana swabhava vishud abhishinjantu mam sarva tata gata sugata varavachana amrita abhishekera mahamudra mantra pade ahara ahara mama ayo sandarani shodaya Vishodaya, Vishodaya, Kagana, Swabhava, Vishuddhe, Ushnisha, Vijaya, Parishuddhe, Sahasra, Rasmi, Sanchodit, Sarva Tata Gata, Avalokini, Shat Paramita, Paripurani, Sarva Tata Gata, Mate, Dasha Bhumi, Pratishtite, Sarva Tata Gata, Hridaya, Adhishtana Adhishtite Vajrakaya Samantana Parishuddhe Sarva Karma Avarana Vishuddhe Prati Nivartaya Mama Ayur Vishuddhe Sarva Tata Gata Samaya Adhishtana Adhishtite Om Muni Muni Maha Muni Vi Muni Vi Muni Maha Vi Mati mati maha mati mamati sumati tatata buddha koti parishuddhe visputa buddhishuddhe he he jaya jaya vijaya vijaya smara smara spara spara sparaya spara sarva buddha adhishtana adhisht Shude Shude Bude Bude Vajre Vajre Mahavaj Su Vajre Vajra Garbe Jaya Garbe Vijaya Garbe Vajra Jwala Garbe Vajro Bhave Vajra Sambhave Vajre Vajrini Vajram Bhavantu Mama Shariram Sarva Sattvancha Kaya Parishuddhir Bhavantu Me Sada Sarva Gati Parishuddhischa Sarva Tata Gatascha Mam Sama Vasayantu Buddhaya Buddhaya Siddhaya Bodhaya Bodhaya Vibodaya Vibodaya Mochaya Mochaya Vimochaya Vimochaya Shodaya Shodaya Vishodaya Vishodaya Samantena Mochaya Mochaya Samanta Rasmi Parishuddhe Sarva Tata Gata Hridaya Adhishtana Adhishtite Mudre Mudre Maha Maha Mudra Mantra Pade Svoha Omo Brum Svoha Ayurdate Svoha Om Ahum Cham Re Am Amam Sarva Sattvam Cha Raksha Raksha Kuru Svoha Om A Guru Buddha Ushnisha Vijaya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Amite Amito Bhave Amita Vikrante Amita Gatri Amita Kamini Amita Ayurdate Kagana Kirtikare Sarva Kleshakshayam Kareye Svoha Jetsun Lame Kutse Raptenchi Nam Karachinle Chochur Gepada Losan Tempe Drume Sasumgi Drove Munse Tatu Ne Gyurchi Oma Huntemba Lame Sangye Rinpoche Kyoba Lame Tamcho Rinpoche Tremba Lame Gendu Rinpoche Kyamne Kuncho Sumla Chepabu Locho Sambo Pagyu Trashi Pa Tuche Tembe Tinle Yarn Pegye Drolo Zambeze Pande Lame Shela Chepabu